Over the past decade, we've seen two dominant forces in the sport, and both have fundamentally shaped the narrative of Formula One. From 2014 to 2021, it was the era of Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton, and now, since 2021, the baton seems to have been passed to Red Bull and Max Verstappen. So today we'll ask the question, what does the future hold for Formula One if one team continues to dominate, and what can be done about it? More importantly, who is to blame for this? This video has all the answers you're looking for, so fasten your seatbelts, because it's gonna be an unpleasant ride for the pure enthusiasts of the sport. One-team dominance is nothing new in the world of Formula One, and the root of this issue can be traced back to the start of the turbo-hybrid era in 2014. This was a time of unmatched dominance by Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton. 6 World Championship titles in a row tell a story of sheer brilliance, but also of a somewhat predictable era in Formula One. While Hamilton was riding high on his success, it's interesting to note that he even called for changes in F1 to make the sport more competitive. Now, before we delve further into this, let's acknowledge the fact that Hamilton is an exceptional driver, one of the best the sport has ever seen. But it's somewhat amusing to hear this call for change from a driver who has enjoyed such an extended period of dominance. Fast forward to the post-2021 period, and we see a similar pattern emerging. This time, however, it's Red Bull and Max Verstappen in the lead role. Verstappen, much like Hamilton in his prime, is a phenomenal talent, and there's no question about that. But with no significant upgrades or revolutionary strategies coming from the other teams in the last 2 years, we're seeing a familiar story unfold. One team seizing the throne and refusing to let go. So what's the solution here? Some fans suggest that the FIA should change the rules to nerf Red Bull to level the playing field and make the sport interesting. But is it fair to penalize a team for their success? Isn't it the responsibility of the other teams to up their game, bring innovative strategies and challenge the status quo? More importantly, Hamilton is the one who fueled this narrative to become a truthful scenario in the F1 world, as he openly urged the FIA to tweak the regulations before the next big shake-up in 2026, so that the fans wouldn't be bored of the Verstappen-dominated era. Do I agree with Hamilton? Well, partially, to be fair. And even though it would be a low blow to Red Bull to change the rules as they are right now, it might be the only solution in which we'll have the Formula One sport we're used to watching in the pre-2010 era. This isn't a call to undermine the achievements of Mercedes, Hamilton, Red Bull or Verstappen, but for the sake of competition and the longevity of the sport, we need more than just one dominant driver. As fans, we want unpredictability, we want close races, and we want thrilling last-lap overtakes. To achieve this, the onus falls on the teams themselves. The sport can implement rule changes to promote competition, but ultimately it's up to the teams to challenge the dominance of their competitors and bring fresh ideas and strategies to the table. We've seen it in the past, when teams like Ferrari and McLaren were the dominant forces. But then other teams stepped up, took the fight to them, and we ended up with some of the most competitive seasons in F1 history. A bright light in an otherwise dark and boring tunnel was the 2021 season, where we didn't know who was going to be a champion up until the final turn in Abu Dhabi. Why can't we have more seasons like that? The talk regarding the supremacy of F1 has only amplified since the start of the 2023 season, with the reason being, of course, Red Bull, which has already effectively grabbed the championship with both hands, leaving others in the dust. The dynamic duo of Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez have been unstoppable, nabbing victories in every single race of this season. The gap between them and the rest of the field is widening with every passing race, prompting fans to talk about the vehicle as possibly the best car in the history of the sport. With that in mind, Horner fired back at Toto Wolff after the Mercedes team principal said that he was pissed off by Max Verstappen's dominance. Reigning double world champion Verstappen crushed the field in the Spanish Grand Prix, recording his first Grand Chelem of the season in Barcelona, finishing 24 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton, although Mercedes showed a good turn of pace with their new W14 upgrades. "I don't pay a great deal of attention to it," Horner told the media. "What matters is the score sheet at the end of the day, and that's looking pretty healthy. We've spent 7 years trying to get into a winning position, and losing hurts. We've worked very hard to get into this position. I think the whole team as a unit, and not just Max, is operating at such a high level, and we have a phenomenal car. We've got 2 great drivers, and Max is just continuing to evolve as a driver. He's just become more and more polished, and the capacity he has within the car is truly impressive." The victory in Barcelona was the 40th of Verstappen's career, 7 years after his win on debut for the team in the famous race where Hamilton and Nico Rosberg collided on the first lap for Mercedes. Look, the The Formula One world is very well aware of one-team dominance. Let's take, for example, the years when Michael Schumacher was dominating. In 2004, he won 12 of the first 13 races and clinched the title with 4 races to spare. But there was another era. Formula One has since grown very much, especially with the launch of the Drive to Survive series on Netflix. That doesn't mean, of course, that no team should dominate because of it, but it does undermine the excitement of the sport, and it creates sort of a counter effect to the increasing popularity from the Netflix show. So what can be done about this? Well, in my opinion, one reason would be fewer street tracks. These are typically characterized by narrow lanes, tight corners, and limited overtaking opportunities. While this can sometimes lead to thrilling, edge-of-your-seat moments, it more than often results in processional races with few position changes. Contrarily, traditional circuits tend to offer wider tracks, faster corners, and longer straights, which are conducive to overtaking maneuvers and wheel-to-wheel battles. A key aspect of Formula One that attracts fans globally is the thrill of overtaking, the tactical brilliance of pit stop strategies, and high-speed pursuits. While street circuits certainly test a driver's skill in handling and control, they may not always provide the best platform for these aspects of racing to shine. Take the comparison between Monaco and Spa-Francorchamps. The Monaco street circuit, while steeped in history and glamour, often leads to races criticized for lack of on-track action, and on the other hand, Spa, a traditional circuit, is more renowned for its high-speed straights and challenging corners that frequently result in exciting, unpredictable races. Then, another point worth considering would just be more pit stops, and that's where Pirelli comes into play here, the tyre manufacturer. The idea here is simple. More pit stops equate to more strategy variations, more opportunities for overtaking, and in essence, more action on track. Teams must decide when to pit, which tyres to choose, and how to manage those tyres for the remaining laps. This strategic decision-making process, combined with the on-track action, could make for more thrilling races. Moreover, with more pit stops, there are increased chances for dramatic moments, whether it's an exceptionally fast stop that propels a driver up the order, or a pit lane blunder that alters the course of the race. These moments can often become the highlights of a Grand Prix, making it more memorable for fans. However, on the flip side, while more pit stops could potentially make races more dynamic and unpredictable, there's an argument to be made that they could also diminish the importance of strategic depth in F1. Granted, the FIA might be a little bit to blame here for not introducing anything revolutionary to the sport in years, bar any rule changes, but this time it's not all them to blame. As we said earlier, the teams must work harder to develop new strategies, and in a way, we can say that Formula One needs new minds. Whether that can happen now or in 10 years' time, who knows? The point is, until that happens, both the FIA from their side and the teams from the other must work towards improving the sport rather than only looking for themselves and how they can profit from it. In a world where money is the thing that makes everything go around, why not swerve from that path a little bit and just look at things from the fans' point of view? A lot of fans, especially newer fans or fans coming from motorsports with fixed formulas, want to see a battle for the lead every race, and that's not F1. F1 is at its most enjoyable when you follow the whole field and the storylines happening for each team throughout the race or season. Going back into the 60s to 80s and 80s, there was a little fight every other year, sometimes with completely new teams at the front. Dominance as prolonged, as this has only been a thing since teams have gotten more prize money, and the cycle of dominance we've seen since the early 2010s only started with Ferrari in the early 2000s. People shouldn't normalize dominance runs like this. It's not supposed to be a Red Bull sweep because that's how Formula One works. It's because the teams simply are not at the same level yet. The reason why pecking order changed so much in the 60s to 80s was because cars were getting 2 seconds per lap faster between seasons sometimes. It was disadvantageous to follow someone else's design concept verbatim, and relatively high-level design changes were rewarded with climbing to the very top of the standings. The regulations are too prescriptive in this era, which is why dominance is hard to shake now. There is a solution somewhere out there waiting to be discovered. Until then, we have to enjoy the sport as much as we can in this situation it is in right now. Now that you've heard our thoughts, what are yours? What can FIA and the teams do to make this sport more interesting? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.